So I also want to really thank you for inviting me into your home this evening and also coming into mine. And yeah, and just rambling and ambling a little bit down this herbalist path with me. I think there's really nothing that I love doing more than sharing my love of plants with others. So I just thank you for this opportunity. Also, I just need to let you know too that, I do write notes down, and I'm always a little nervous about what's going to come forth. I'm never really sure. I never really look at my notes, but always before I start a class ever, I always just pray to the plants, and I ask that I can be a voice for them and just allow myself and my shyness and my insecurities to move aside so that I can just let that spirit of the plants and creator and nature move through me. And my prayer tonight is that whatever sparks come through me, that they can land in the good places in your heart, and that those sparks light a green spark that then goes out into the world and lights more green sparks, which is really how this green energy has spread so beautifully around the world. So I think what I'd love to do right now, kind of the message I just got from the plants, is just to call them in. So why don't we all just take a moment and close our eyes or soft focus, just kind of shut off the world and just call in a plant that you feel particularly close to right now. Maybe it's a herb that you've been drinking as tea, or some plant that you're growing, or a plant that's been calling to you, or one that you use in healing. Just bring it in and just envision it in front of you or inside you, or holding, maybe you're embracing it over to your heart. And if you have trouble doing this, just imagine yourself as a child and let your imagination run free. But let's just take a moment. I'm going to stop talking for a second. Just hold that plant close and give gratitude for it. And as you're holding that plant close, just take some deep green breathing with it. As my friend Pam calls it, it's the green breath. Just breathe in, receiving the oxygen that it provides for us. And as you breathe out your carbon dioxide, just recognize that's what the plant thrives on. The plant utilizes that breath that we breathe out. We're just going to take a few moments to do green breath with this plant. Breathing in and out and just giving thanks to the plants that provide air and breath and light and nourishment, medicine and food for us. And we give such thanks, that we've just created this incredible garden. Our thoughts do absolutely create energetic imprints. Shamans and healers and wise women and wise men have always known that. But science even recognizes now that our thoughts absolutely create energetic imprints. And we've just created this amazing energetic imprint of 1,000 plants, healing plants going out into the world. And that actually is incredibly powerful and empowering, especially at a time when we know the world needs this energetic imprint of goodness and healing that the plants give us. So I want to thank you for that. Yeah. So I know that I'm speaking to an audience of people, many of you here are herbalists. You're practicing herbalists, which basically means you just practice being a plant lover, being an herbalist. Some of you want to be herbalists. You might be studying right now or really thinking of becoming one. And some of you perhaps are not even sure what being an herbalist means. It sounds good, right? It's kind of popular right now, which is interesting. But so, I always like to just start off by saying there's probably many, many definitions of herbalist. I always like to look at what Daniel Webster said about being an herbalist. So Merriam-Webster says herbalist is a person who works with plants for healing. That's A. And B is an herbalist also grows and gathers and works with plants. So in a more general sense. And healing is basically defined by Webster as creating wholeness and restoring and renewing. And so all of us who play with plants and work with plants, either as gatherers or harvest gatherers, growers, medicine makers, And all of us who are working to create more wholeness in the world, in our families, in our bodies, and in our communities in the world are already practicing herbalists. And there's so many different ways that we can be practicing herbalists. So we can be like my daughter and son of heart, Jeff and Melanie Carpenter, who have Sackwoods Herb Farm and grow medicinal plants. They're healing the earth by creating better management of the soil and restoring soil, and then creating these wonderful herbs that go out and people make teas and medicines with them. And my good friend Christine Shaham, who's a holistic beauty practitioner who puts henna on people's hair and transforms their hair, but also transforms how they feel about them and uses this incredibly healing plant henna. She's also practicing herbalist, right? And the mothers and fathers in their kitchen who are, maybe making their echinacea or buying echinacea from their neighbors who are growing it and using that for their children and their families are also practicing herbalists. And the clinical practitioner who's studied long and hard and understands the anatomy and physiology and the pathways that these herbs work in the body is also a practicing herbalist. And the cook who takes all the magic from their garden and transforms it into healing food is also a practicing herbalist. So there's many, many ways to practice the skills and the art of herbalism. If you love, I call my name for herbalists really are plant lovers. And to me, the most important part of being an herbalist and a plant lover is developing a deep and personal relationship with them. And they guide us on the path of how to be our kind of herbalist. So, yeah, I think that's the most important thing is developing that deep and personal relationship with the plants. So it really becomes the plants become the communicators and the teachers for us. And of course, we use books and we go to classes and we go to conferences and we go do online courses because that all guides us. And as humans, we understand human language maybe a little better than when we're first starting to understand plant language. But the plants reach out to us and they absolutely would teach us through their own language. Yeah, I always say my good friend who has since passed away, Stephen Buhner, used to call it the lost language of plants, but it really is not a lost language. It's a forgotten one that we have to practice hearing. But all of us, all of you who spend time with plants, out in the garden, out in the woods, in your kitchen, in your closet, when you're cooking, when you really are paying attention to the plants, you actually begin to hear the language of the plants. And you can engage them more by just talking with them. Yeah. So how to practice herbalism, one of the things, and develop relationships, how we develop relationships with plants is very much the same with how we develop relationships with people. It's by attention, by intention, and by spending time together. It's very hard to develop deep and lasting friendships with people without taking time to develop those friendships. And so what I like to do is engage people in using plants every day in their lives in all the various ways. And I'm just going to share some of these ways with you. One is by spritzers. You can make these really simple little spritzers. They're so easy to make. Helen and I are going to share some fun recipes with you, but we don't have time to teach you everything tonight. But you can go online, you can look at books. I have all of these recipes in my course. They're readily available. And every one of them is every one of the things I'm going to share with you tonight is 3 steps, do this, this, and this, and you've got an incredible product. So spritzers are aromatic blends of plants that you use for cleansing the room. You can call them room fresheners, but I like to think of these herbs. They are room fresheners, but they go in and it's plant energies are entering into your space, right? You can spritz your body with them. You can once you get to know your herbs, you can actually formulate the herbs you want to put in. You can use them for stinky areas in the house, Today, before we started this class, Helen and I, we used a special wand to kind of cleanse our energy and open our hearts. And then we spritz the area. So all kinds of ways that you can use these. And you can formulate ones that are cleansing and purifying. You can formulate ones that are uplifting to the heart that help to heal a broken heart. you can formulate ones for abundance. I mean, you can have so much fun doing this. And also, I love to make to use plants in wands, and these can be. They're sometimes in traditional cultures, so they're used all around the world. By the way, by cultures all around the world, and they're given different names. Because we're trying to be so appropriate about not using things that might be cultural appropriation. I call them brooms or wands. But in the cultures that I was taught by the elders who taught me, they were called limpias or smudging. And so, I just gather local plants. This is made from the cedar that grows out on our property. You can use lavender or sage, the garden sage that grows out in your yard, any of the aromatic plants. And you can use them simply for just cleansing your energy again. I want to say that it's fun, but when I use that word fun, I don't mean really lightly. I mean in the way that it's joyful. It's just a wonderful thing to do, before you, teach, before you do anything that feels like importance to you, before you sign contracts, before you get married, before you go on a date, is to cleanse the energy with these sacred plants. And as you get to know the plants more and you develop relationships with them, you begin to hear the plants telling you which plants to work with. So you can make these beautiful limpias, the broomsticks, they're called brooms, or wands. Also, I love making herbal dream pillows, and so that way all night long, I'm sleeping next to my dream pillows. This is one of the very first things that I actually taught students to make way back when I first started teaching in 1972. Make dream pillows and go to sleep with your herbs, because things you sleep with, you get pretty intimate with generally. So, and you can, again, the formulas are simple. You can just take herbs that you have. You have lavender and chamomile. Hops is really good to put in, but just to make these beautiful pillows. And these also are really good for gifts for people. This is a gorgeous one. I've had for a while now, but it's all hand embroidery and it's really beautiful. And then just other ways, is herbal bathing, making a beautiful blend again with just simple common herbs. It could be lavender and chamomile, and those are just beautiful combinations. Comfrey is another one. And then when you get out of the bath or in the morning time, is using anointing oils. In days past, anointing oils used to be really important. They were used for kind of using oils that were lubricating for the body, but the herbs in them were also healing or beautifying. And so the anointing oils, you just get up in the morning and after you slept, you take your shower, and then you just take your oils and you just rub them on your body before you get dressed. And it's just, again, another beautiful way to bring herbs into your life on a daily way. And of course, teas, you start your morning with your cup of tea, you end your day with a cup of tea. And when you make these teas, I know so many of you begin them with coffee and end them with coffee. And coffee is another outstanding and incredible plant. It's definitely very medicinal, and it has purposes. It has lots of medicinal uses. That's very, very overstimulating for a lot of people, and especially in these very aggressive times that we're living in, very, very stimulating times. When you drink, so you can have your coffee if you need that coffee to get your day going, but then somewhere mid-morning, stop and have your cup of tea. And when you drink that tea, and even when you drink that coffee, do it with this deep intention. It's not just hurriedly drinking. You want to really allow those herbs to enter your body. And so again, it's really developing relationships with these plants. This is the way that you learn to be a really incredible practicing herbalist, and by developing these relationships with plants that go very, very deep. So I want to also share with you that many of you are probably much more practicing herbalists than you imagine. So like if you, for instance, cook and you turn around and you look at your kitchen cabinet with all of its culinaries, some of the world's best medicinal plants are in the kitchen already. And just to give you an example, I just wanted to show you, I just randomly chose a few of them. And I'm watching Helen because she's going to give me the time, because actually when I start talking about these plants, I could ramble on forever, really, about any single one of these plants. I don't know if you can see this beautiful platter. These are just common plants I have in my kitchen, and you most likely have them in your kitchen. So what's the difference between a culinary and a medicinal herb? It's primarily in the dosage. And one of the really important things to realize is that all of the plants, the herbs and spices that we think of as culinaries, were not put in people's food because of the flavor. Most of them are pungent and bitter. It's not really that they taste good. It's just over centuries, we've become accustomed to the flavors. When we add these spices and herbs to the food now, it's familiar to us, especially if they're part of our ancestry. But they were originally used in cooking because they all have medicinal properties. They either aided digestion, they help with the digestion of the fats and the oils, they help preserve the food. There were particular reasons why those potent concentrated herbs were added to foods. So just randomly, I'm just going to quickly talk about these. And if you do want to have any more information on any of these herbs, you can always get this book, my medicinal herb book, A Beginner's Guide, because I talk about all of these herbs in quite detail. Each one of them has a chapter. So garlic, of course, this is probably if I had to choose one herb in the kitchen and one herb as a medicine, it would probably be garlic. On every level, I love this. I mean, it's just an incredibly sensuous, fiery, hot plant. It's delicious in food. You can bake it, cook it. It just enhances and seasons everything. But also, it's one of the most important medicines that we have. It was called, for a long time, the poor man's penicillin. It's a powerful antibacterial agent and antimicrobial agent. It helps enhance the immune system. It's good for the circulatory system. It boosts the immune system. On every level. And cooking with it, what people often wonder, if you cook with it, do you destroy the oils? You destroy a little bit, but it's very potent. You can taste that. You can taste the potency when you eat it. And in fact, garlic is so potent, it actually, even though it's a common culinary and an herb that most people use, it does have counterindications. For some people, it actually can be stressful to their digestion because it's too hot. And if you're a very hot type person, which is seen by your, the red glow on your face, or sometimes big hardy people who have a lot of deep color in their face, and sometimes they get roused easily and they get overstimulated and they get angry really easily. Garlic is not a good herb for them because it adds heat to the body. And that may be one reason I love it so much, because I tend to be very cold. So I love this herb because it warms me up. But this is a great herb for the wintertime right now. You should be eating it a lot and cooking with it. So medicinal and culinary herb. And then another one of my beloved favorites is sage. And this sage I grow myself and I dry it a lot. This sage can be used as in the wands for smudging and for cleansing. But and we use it in cooking, though not enough. I think this herb can be used so much more in cooking. It's very deeply pungent and warming and drying to the system. So really good for winter illnesses. And in fact, when you study the medicinal properties of sage, you find out that it's used for a wide variety of issues where there's excess fluid. So we use it when there's coughs and colds, when there's leukorrhea, the whites, drippy white stuff. We use it for what's called night emissions, which is kind of a funny term, but it's premature ejaculation, not good. For night sweats is another thing. So when there's excess fluid, also it's also used for drying up mother's milk. It's not an herb that we ever recommend for nursing mothers, but when mothers want to start weaning or stop nursing their children, they just drink sometimes 1 cup of tea a day will help to dry that milk up. So when there's a lot of excess fluid, it's my number one favorite herb when there's a lot of infection in the throat and in the bronchioles. And then I almost forgot to mention it for any of the menopausal women, those hot flashes, power flashes that you get. This is a really good herb that helps regulate hot flashes. It can reduce them and also helps to regulate that hot, angry feeling that sometimes happens when we're going through menopause. Am I going fast enough?
I think you've got about 5 more minutes.
And then, of course, we have thyme, another common culinary it enhances almost everything that you cook with, right? And it also is another herb that's really, really good for wintertime imbalances. And it's also a very good herb for use for the endocrine gland system. and particularly for the thymus gland. It's really interesting. There was a wonderful professor and herbalist named Dr. Paul Lee, who taught out of the University of Santa Cruz in California. And he was particularly fond of this plant. And he would make this thyme salve, and then he would use it to put over the thymus gland, which was right here. And he would tell everybody to do the thymus thump. It was kind of funny and amusing from this especially coming from this extremely educated professor. But actually, scientifically, it was proven that it actually enhanced the thymus gland, which of course enhances the entire immune system. So you can do the thymus thump with your thyme salve, but it's also a really excellent mix in great syrup, and yeah, it's good for so many things. And then we have rosemary, which of course I have to speak about. It's one of my namesakes, so I'm especially fond of rosemary. Again, a common culinary herb. People always ask me if that is my real name, and it is. I was named after my grandmother's, Rosemary Gladstar is my old hippie name from the 1960s, by the way. But so this is a powerful antioxidant, and it also has known to be an excellent herb for helping with memory. It's one of the herbs that has been scientifically proven to feed the brain. It actually crosses that brain-blood barrier. It's a powerful antioxidant. It's also really excellent for the cardiovascular system. A really nice kind of uplifting, stimulating herb, using it for all kinds of anguish in the head, like when you get headaches and migraines and your memory gets a little foggy, and you need just a little broom sweeping up there. You can use rosemary this way, but I usually suggest it as a tea or a tincture. I have a very famous brain tonic that I've been making for about 30 or 40 years. And I've taught thousands of students how to make it. And it's a really wonderful combination. You can probably find it in any of my books or on our online. All of these recipes are on our home study course and in many of my books. And then, of course, ginger and turmeric and cayenne. Those are the other ones I wanted to sneak in and talk about. But, more than anything, I just wanted to share with you that when you use plants in cooking, all of those herbs that you're using, every single one of them has a long history of being used as medicine. They're usually the ones that are cultivated and have traveled with humans as different nationalities have traveled, and are some of the very best medicines that we have. So it's just learning a little bit more about how to use them as potent and valuable medicines. So I'm going to do a quick look and see where I am on my notes. So I also just wanted to take a moment before we transit into doing the sharing some recipes with you to just pause for a minute and just think about all the very many ways that plants enrich our lives. And, I almost always speak about that. If any of you have ever listened to me ramble on in the past, I almost always bring this up because no matter how many times I've said it and how many times I've heard it, it still impacts me very deeply when I really just think about the plant queendom. For one thing, plants are one of the oldest living species on the planet. Just plants. They were here no matter what your creation story is, the Bible story, the, Turtle Island rising up, the Big Bang, whatever it is, that your belief system tells you is the truth. Plants were always here before humans and really one of the first living species on the planet. And what that means for us is that they are ancient creatures and beings, and they have tremendous survival skills. And not only survival skills, not only have they outlived cataclysmic events, things that we can't even imagine right now, like meteorites pounding into the planet, huge eruptions, volcanic eruptions, and plants are the first things that come back and colonize that volcanic soil. Huge floods that have lasted for hundreds of years, right? And then when the waters recede or the oceans recede, the plants come and colonize. They're colonizers too. And the plants not only survive, but they thrive in such a way that they create food and medicine and clothing and shelter for all other living beings. So not just humans, depending on them. Plants are everywhere on the planet, every nook and cranny, highest mountain, deepest ocean, desert. Plants colonize everywhere. And everywhere they go, they create beauty. And that just gives me, it's amazing. And plants actually are the largest living mass of any other thing on the planet. They account for greater weight and greater space than any other living thing on the earth. It's kind of amazing when you think about it. Yeah. Plants stand out in the sunlight and gather all the food. Most plants, there's a few that don't, but the 95 majority of plants, they gather ancient sunlight from the sun, sunlight that's millions of years old, and they transform that into matter that they use to grow and thrive. And when we eat plants, we're actually eating ancient sunlight. It's kind of amazing. So our medicine, our food, our shelter, and I mentioned this when we first started, that the air that we breathe is the outbreath of the plant, and the air that the plants breathe is our outbreath. So that in itself is the reason why we all want to be herbalists today. We all want to be plant lovers. We all want to study and honor and work with these ancient beings that are our elders and our teachers. And those plants will teach us in so many different ways how to serve them back. So yeah, I'm so excited that we are all talking and walking on this herbalist path. So another fun thing to do with plants, of course, and this is one of the steps, I'll talk about this later, like how we become practicing herbalists, is by making things with them, by creation. And so I was going to invite my dear friend Helen to come. You can start, sweetie.
Thank you, Rosemary, so much for that. So we have 3 really great recipes for you this evening, and we'll share them. And one, which Rosemary created just for all of you, which is really exciting. But tonight I'm going to speak about oxymels or shrubs. And an oxymel is literally acid and honey, if you look up the word. So it's apple cider vinegar, the raw apple cider vinegar, and raw honey. And the benefits of both vinegar and honey. So vinegar is alkaline, so it helps our body fight off infection. It increases our digestion, boosts our immune system. And many people who might not prefer to take the vinegar, this is a great way to add the sweetness to it. So it calms it a little. So this evening, I'm making an elderberry shrub for you. And the difference between an oxymel and a shrub is oxymels are really working with plant material. So I was actually listening to a beautiful podcast on my ride here today, and Rosalie was sharing that she makes an oxymel with thyme. Which I thought, and another one with dandelion. I love making shrubs because my husband is non-alcoholic, and it's a really fabulous way to really stay away from some of those mocktails that are so sugar laden. He really loves, so I use not old fruit, but fruit that might be on its way out a little. And so it's a really fabulous way to work with the fruits in your refrigerator or your kitchen I've made them with peaches. Peach and blueberry shrub is really beautiful. But this evening I'm going to make an elderberry shrub. So these are dried elderberries. And the recipe is, I like to use a mason jar. And when you're making any medicine with vinegar, you'd like to use either a plastic lid or make sure that you use a lid that if you use the metal lid, you can put a little piece of wax paper and then put the top on, because the vinegar will corrode. It causes the metal to rust a little faster. So you put in about a quarter of the jar of the dried plant material. And look at that. It's about perfect how much I had. And then you cover it, literally. It's that simple. And the recipe, there's different recipes out there. I encourage you to adapt. This is a great way if you like something a little more sour or a little sweeter, you can add a little more or less. But the recipe that we're sharing with you this evening is 1 part of vinegar to 1 part honey. And so literally you can heat this on the stove, not bringing it to a boil, but if you'd like to put it in a saucepan and put the herbs in and then cover it with the honey and the vinegar and bring it to just below a simmer and heat it up and warm the honey, or you can add all of your ingredients and set it in a warm place. So tonight we'll add 1 part vinegar. So I'm going to put it to about 1/3 of the jar. And we'll add 1 part of this beautiful raw honey, which also has the medicinal effect. So I'll add another 1/3. And I'm eyeing it. I chose not to measure.
Rosemary's way.
Yeah, and my way, with both of our ways. And literally, then you top it. And as Rosemary has taught me well, I always shake my intentions in prayers whenever I'm doing anything. To speak about elderberry a little, and Rosemary, how she started so beautifully of calling a plant in that we love and have a deep relationship with. Elderberry is one of mine. I think as herbalists and plant lovers, we have many, each of us maybe, but I would say that elderberry is definitely an ally of mine. It is a perfect one for this time of year because it boosts our immune system. So making an elderberry shrub is an excellent way to really be taking your food as medicine and making these beautiful mocktails or spritzers. And it's a preventative for the cold and flu. So it's an antiviral. And so when you shake it, then really just shake your intentions, your prayers into this beautiful medicine. And then you can place that. Thankfully, it didn't shake purple all over our kitchen. I'm very grateful for that. So you can then let it sit for 2 to 4 weeks or a little bit longer if you'd like. And then you may strain it and bottle it. If you use fruit that is really kind of juicy, like I was sharing before, and you're making a shrub, then I do put this in the refrigerator. If you're using dried plant material, then it is shelf stable. So you do not have to refrigerate it, and it's good for about 6 months. So then you can put this in a warm spot and make sure that you label it and date it, because we always think we're going to remember, but we forget. And then the beautiful thing is, once you've made it, then you can enjoy it. So we have a little elderberry spritzer that it's an elderberry shrub that I made and bottled. And now we put it in a beautiful glass that you love, and think of all the medicinal aspects of it. So we have a little seltzer here. We chose plain seltzer. You could try a flavored one. I think adding a little lime to this. The other thing I would like to share is I use this often for mocktails, as I was saying, for my husband. Really great non-alcoholic alternatives now. Ritual is one of them. There's many. In fact, I just read an article that a friend of mine just opened a non-alcoholic bar in Burlington, which is really fabulous with all these botanical spritzers. And so cheers. Cheers. Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, so all of these recipes they're going to get, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to.
Yeah, so you'll receive them I think our team is sharing them in the chat.
It's delicious. Really, honestly, it is so incredibly delicious. Yeah.
And healthy for you.
Yeah, and you can basically make these medicines, this shrub or oxymel. And the term, I use them interchangeably, by the way. They're the same thing, honey, alcohol, and herbs, but when you're making them with fruit, technically it's a shrub. That's kind of the technical difference of them. But really, I like the term oxymel. It's kind of,
I like the name.
Yeah, and it comes actually from Hippocrates' time. And Hippocrates, who's considered the father of modern medicine, but truthfully, he was an herbalist and a naturopath, right? He used oxymels a lot, and he used them and it was originated in the ancient Greek days, that term. And it was one of the favorite ways that he gave herbs, was making these acidic and then sweet.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's just, I wish we could share it with each of you.
But you get to make it. It's so super easy. So the next recipe is even easier. And it's another one. I just love this. I've taught how to do it in my Herbs for Winter Health class many, many years. So if you've taken that class anytime in the last 30 years, you've made this. But it's, again, just super easy. It's rosehip jam, and it's made with dried seeded rose hips. So the rose hips have to be seeded, otherwise it won't work. They're usually, I usually buy them deseeded, and most herb stores sell them away. If you have a lot of rose hips, you can sit and deseed them yourself. But really, believe me, I've done that. I've done that, been there, and now I just buy them already seeded because it works so much better. I forget who taught me how to make this recipe. I think it was one of my students, but regardless, I'm forever indebted to them. So what you do is you just start with your deseeded dried rose hips. You fill a small jar, about halfway full. Excuse me, you don't want to make this in large amounts because it will store in the refrigerator for about 4 or 5 weeks. But you do have to refrigerate it because there's nothing in it that keeps it shelf stable. So, and all you do is you have a good apple cider. I don't like to use apple juice in this. I want a good apple cider. You can get them frozen year round. This is one our good friend Nancy Phillips made. So anyway, and you just fill the rest of the jar with it. Just fill it up to the shoulder because it's going to swell up a little bit. And then put your lid on. Oh, and let it sit overnight. One thing I did last night when I made it, so this is last night's, and I don't know if you can see it. It comes out this beautiful consistency. And you can spread it on toast and use it with pancakes. But quite honestly, you can just lick it off the spoon because it's so good. A little spoon for you.
Thank you.
I think it's incredibly delicious. Yeah, that's all you do. You just put it at room temperature, let it sit overnight. What I did with that one is I just took a big teaspoon of my spice blend that I use. You know, it's kind of a blend of pumpkin pie spices and vanilla. Not vanilla, and cinnamon. I put a lot more cinnamon, a little ginger in it. So it's just a spice blend. And I added like a couple big teaspoons to it. And I thought it made it even better. You know, you can just have fun in your kitchen. The first time it's good to just make it like the recipe says. And then the second time you make it, you can do it any way you want. Isn't that good?
It's so delicious.
Yeah, so you just shake it up. That's how simple it is. This is a fun thing to do with your children, right? It's that simple. They can make their own rosehip jam. Rose hips, right? Mm-hmm. It could be from any roses so long as they haven't been sprayed. Cultivated wild. The wild roses are generally going to have more bioflavonoids in them and vitamin C, very rich in that. But your cultivated roses will work as well, so long as they're not sprayed. So yeah, another very simple recipe.
So delicious.
Yeah, so good. I know. I just am so indebted to whoever shared that recipe. Usually I try to remember, but not always. So the last recipe I wanted to share with you, I was just playing last night, and actually I sent the recipe to Emma, who'll be typing it out and sending it to you tomorrow. Just late last night, I think it was around 11:30. I was thinking about the holidays and how fun it would be to make some holiday truffle balls. And so again, just super, super simple recipe. And these are the ones I made last night. I don't know if you can see them. Can you see how cute they are? They're little balls, and this one's like a little heart shape. I don't know if you can, but they are cute. And so you'll have a recipe. And I'll just quickly show you how to do this. So I just started with, I had I'm going to take a half a cup of cocoa butter. The cocoa butter is actually, it's not oil, it's butter. You can make it yourself. It's made with the whole coconut. So this is the whole coconut that's been kind of ground and then whipped into a butter. And it is used like butter. It's kind of rich and nice, but it's not the oil. If you use just the oil, it just is too melty. So I use the butter, and I bought this butter, but as I said, you can make it yourself. And then I added a fourth of the oil to it. So just some nice organic coconut oil goes in there, and I just stir it up, and that's kind of my base. And then I added a little of my homemade vanilla, which is super easy. If you've never made your own vanilla, for one thing, it's so much better and so much stronger and than what you buy, and also so much less expensive. But you do have to let it sit a long time. I usually let it sit when I'm making it for about 7 or 8 months. This is from last year. Yeah, I always have batches of vanilla going. And I stir that in, and you can also use like a vanilla paste or vanilla sugar, but that little bit of vanilla just adds a nice flavor to it. And you can also add cinnamon, and I see I did add split cinnamon to it. So you can add, I tried adding cardamom, which I thought would be absolutely delicious, but it didn't come through. So a nice bit of cinnamon added to it. Yum, 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 yum. And then what did I do next? Then I added a little sweetener, and you can make it sweeter if you want. I added just about 3 tablespoons. Honey, would you hand me a tablespoon, please? Oh, my hands are greasy, so I may need you to open that. I had it open. You can make it a little sweeter, but I didn't want it to be overpowering. So I found 3 tablespoons was just perfect. And I also made some with maple syrup. You can use date sugar. You know, you can use different sweeteners for it, but I think I like the honey best of all, actually. So we're going to do that. And 1 more spoonful. There we go.
Good medicine.
Yeah, that's good. And then we're going to add the herbs. And the herbal formula that you use, for those of you who already know a lot about herbs, you can add any formula that you want to this. You can make an aphrodisiac formula. You can make an adaptogenic formula. You can make a stimulating formula. The formula that I made here was a mixture of ashwagandha, and I used ashwagandha, and I wrote it down, and reishi mushroom powder, and mucuna, or velvet bean, which is very uplifting to the spirits. It's kind of opens your heart and creates joy. And I used a total in here of about 8 teaspoons, which gave me about, let's see, if I did 8 teaspoons, it gave me about 16. I wanted each ball, each little candy that I made to have approximately a half a teaspoon in it. So I made about 16 balls. I had about 8 teaspoons. I explain that on your recipe that you get. The amount of herb formula that you add to it is going to be dependent on the size of your balls. I tried to find a better way to say that, but I just couldn't. So there you go. So it's about a half a teaspoon of the herbal formula per dose. Is a really good amount. And these herbs have to be finely powdered. They don't work if they're not powdered. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to add medicinal mushrooms to the formula. So these will be a little bit more medicinal, and I'm going to add about, because that was so full. Yeah, right in here. I'm going to add about 8 teaspoons again, which will give me, so this is a mixture of 5 different medicinal mushrooms. And I'm just going to add those. It's a lot, but remember when I divide them into that's not enough. When I divide them into the balls, each ball will have about a half a teaspoon in them. And that will give each dose just about the right amount. So it's a lot of herb, but the base covers up those bitter or musty or earthy flavors. So it's kind of neat how it works. And then to thicken this, I add a nice raw cacao powder to it. So, and I add a total of it's really about 2/3 cup, but depending on how loose your balls are, oh dear, this is getting bad. Welcome to my kitchen, right? You can add a little bit more, or a little less of the cacao powder. So you can also add, which I added it at the very end, but you can also add like goji berries or little walnuts or cranberries. You know, you can get very creative with this formula. Though if you're not used to working with plants or spending a lot of time in the kitchen, if you follow this formula just the way it's written down, it will work really well for you. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do here. Well, here, let me mix a little bit more. And then it's almost perfect. You can see I've got it getting it really nice like this. And then I have these little plastic gloves. And before I put the plastic gloves on, I'm just working that last of that powder. I just want to share with you just some of the, if you don't mind, honey, that would be great. And I can put this on, but I just wanted to show. So you can also add, you can buy formulas. Like here's one that my good friend Ayala does. It's for the mind, so you can make a nice mind one. You can do the mushroom mocha powders or the hot chocolate powders, and I just use a good powdered cacao, a raw cacao, unsweetened in this. So you can really have fun and just kind of play with the formula and add different things. I hope that's not confusing to you, but that's kind of how the herbalist is in the kitchen. You have a basic recipe, and you have maybe not every single ingredient, and so you just kind of play a little bit. The idea is to create a base that tastes really good, that covers up the taste of the medicinal plants that you're using. So that looks beautiful.
Do you want to add a little bit?
Yeah, we'll add a little bit more. And then what I'm going to do with these, so I can roll them into balls. I can coat it in my rose sugar. This is a beautiful, I don't know if you can see this, but it's a beautiful rose sugar that I made that's powdered rose petals, and I just mix it in. It's dried powdered rose petals, and I mix it into an organic sugar. So it makes it really nice for, I'll just take a little piece here and just show people. So it makes it really nice. Just make a nice little ball or a square or a heart, whatever you want. And then you just roll it in the sugar, or you can roll it in coconut. I have the coconut here. And then the other thing that you can do is, I love these silicone molds, right? So you can see here, I made these great little heart-shaped ones, which are really fun too. But with the other thing you could do is just take these little molds and you just do a little press. I'm going to put the sugar right on that. You see how nice that'll be. I just sprinkle my little rose sugar that I made. You can have lavender sugar, whatever you want. These make wonderful gifts. And these, because of the cocoa butter in them, they won't melt at room temperature. They get a little soft, but so I just press them in here. I just press them into the mold, just like that, and take off the excess. I'm not going to do them all. I'll do just a couple of them to show you how simple and easy it is. I put them in the refrigerator to harden over the evening. And then tomorrow when I wake up, I'll have a little box of beautiful, these will be leaves that I have.
That's pretty.
I know it is. They're beautiful. Actually, they're really fun. I think that's good. We'll do one more. And I don't want to take everybody's time up pressing molds, but here we go. So I just have these little molds like that. I just press them in, and then I'll pop them out like I did with these tomorrow. So herbal truffle balls, you can make wonderful formulas using different herbs. You can make one that's stimulating to the mind. You can make an immune, if you want to make medicinal ones, which is what I did with the medicinal mushroom one. I made one that, like I usually take my medicinal mushrooms and I mix them in with my tea in the morning. But this way I can have my tea in the afternoon with just a nice little medicinal mushroom truffle ball. Helen, try one and tell me what you think. Along with your little elderberry drink. Sure. So yeah, really fun.
They're delicious.
I know, they are good.
Oh.
I would love to be able to pass these around to all of you right now and have you try my little holiday truffle balls. But this recipe was made just for this class, so enjoy, and I hope you have fun making them too. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
So I think the next thing I wanted to just share with you a little bit about. Ms. Helen, do you have anything you want to add?
Just about intuition. I think that one of the things that Rosemary was just sharing, and what I know about herbalism and working with the plants, is really to encourage each of us to follow your intuition and adapt the recipes. So making them the way, and that, the way that you created it and formulated it, and then, trying to work with the plants and trying new things and following your intuition.
Right. And again, for those of you who are new to working with plants, there's always that insecurity of like which herb to work with and which one and what do they do. And I wanted to just take a moment to just address that right now. Like, how do you begin walking down the herbalist path? You love herbs. You want to use them to help with your health, with your family's health. Maybe you even are thinking about it as being a career, maybe being a community herbalist, or going on and studying deeper and doing this work as a clinical herbalist, or you may already be involved in healing work, being a nurse or a doctor, naturopath, and you just want to work with plants more. So, I started off by talking about developing a deeper relationship and how we, in order to deepen relationships, we have to spend time and create intimacy with those we want to be in deep relationships with, and definitely with the plants. You know, they thrive, and we thrive when we're in relationship with the plants. It's a wonderful co-creative relationship. But I did want to just share with you like some really easy steps for those of you who are just starting down this path, so that are very comfortable. And I know these steps work because I've literally guided thousands of people in the years I've been teaching on the herbalist path, and I've seen hundreds of people become really incredible practicing herbalists just following these very basic, simple steps. So if you're starting, if this is the beginning of your path for you, the best way to start is with a few herbs. I would say 10. I always say 10. 10 seems like a good number. We have 10 toes, 10 fingers, 10 herbs. And I always am reminded of a quote that one of my very dear friends and one of my very early teachers, Dr. Swayville Brooks, said to me. He goes, I'd rather be the type of an herbalist that knows 40 uses of one plant than the herbalist that knows one use of 40 plants. And again, he was talking about just really getting to know your plants. So I would suggest choosing 10 herbs, and those can be the culinary herbs, because as you know, these are all incredibly powerful medicinal, as well as being safe edibles. If you're not sure which 10 herbs to start with, I would just guide you to, this book has, and other books as well, but this book was designed to walk you down that herbal path and to take you deep into it. So just choose 10 herbs and those herbs need to be widely available, common, inexpensive, easy to get or grow, found in your backyard. In other words, the common everyday herbs. And you'll find that these herbs are often the best medicines for the everyday illnesses that we encounter. So choose your 10 herbs, and you need to have them in your house. You need to get like an ounce or two. No, don't get more than that, because start with an ounce or two. You can ideally grow these if it's growing season. There's so many good herb stores today and online sources where you can get really good organic and ethically harvested plants, right? So, and now the steps. You have your herbs, you've made a list. These are the 10 herbs I'm going to start with. And I can give you a list, but the thing is, it's better for you to just kind of think of the 10 herbs that you want to study. You know, echinacea, yarrow, garlic, sage, thyme, rosemary, chamomile. Anyway, I just gave you the list: lavender, valerian, hops. Anyway, and now you have to, first of all, do your research. The research is in 3 books, at least 3 herb books. So not online sources, because unless you know your herbs really well, you won't know which online sources to use. So, and there is some good, a lot of really bad information. So get 3 books that are recommended, and we have a list, right? They can always write to us and we have a really good list that we're happy to give you. And so you're going to spend just a few minutes, maybe it's 20 minutes. So you're going to look in 3 books, not just one, because you don't want just one person's opinion. You want to read the various ways that different herbalists have used this plant. So you're doing your research and your study, and that's going to tell you how safe the herb is. Does it have counterindications? Do you need to be worried about how you use it? If it's too hot, if it's dry and pungent, if it's moisture, it's just going to give you some vital information. Great. And then the next is experience. Information means nothing unless there's experience to back it. So the next step after the research is, after you have the little bit of information, is you sit down with your herb and you try it by itself. It's called a simple, one single herb. And when you drink that tea, you're going to make it as tea. And when you drink that tea, you're going to thoughtfully ingest the herb, let it sit in your mouth so that you're actually allowing your taste buds to taste it and to feel what it's doing, and then follow it as it comes into your body. Really, literally, just pay attention. And if any of you are really so inclined, you can invite the plant into you. You can, again, have conversations with it, or you can merely just drink it. It's going to have conversations with your body. And you want to make a note of your sensations. Is it hot, dry? Is it soothing? Is it itchy? Is it making you feel good? Is the energy moving upwards or downwards? You're going to notice things about the plant. So after you've done that little experience with it, now you're going to experiment. Now you're going to start using them for different purposes. So it may be that you're getting a bad headache or you can't sleep at night, and you've done your research on these plants, and you know valerian or hops will help you sleep, or lemon balm. You might be having just kind of a down day. Lemon balm may lift you up. Roses are heart opening, right? So you'll begin to experiment and to see how these plants work. And the one thing about the experiment I have to really impress with you is that herbs absolutely work, or they would have been discarded eons ago. There is no doubt that herbs work. That's why 82% of the world still uses them as a primary source of healing. They are incredibly effective, but they do not work like drugs. So if you are used to taking an aspirin, and aspirin will interrupt the pathways of pain, right? Blocking them. So the herbs don't necessarily do that. They're going to work in a different way in your body. It's an entirely different system that could be compatible with modern medicine, but isn't a replacement for it. It's its own system of healing. And you'll explore and learn about that more. But so that's really the way, and then that I just recommend you start with 10 herbs, you research them, you sit down quietly. You can do it with your friends. You can have conversations. How's this herb impacting me? You can do it with your children, or you can entice your partner to do it with you. That's always fun. And then I would say, as you begin this relationship, if you can at all grow the plant or learn them grow it where the wild plants are growing, that is really another vital thing, is getting to see the plant in its living being. And also engaging with other herbalists, I have to say, in my world as a plant lover, I've been following this plant really since I was a young child, and seriously as a profession since I was in my 20s. It was like in 1972 is when I opened my first herb store. And I have found joy every day in this work. And in part, it's definitely because of the plants. They radiate positivity and joyness and empowerment and a powerful energy, but it's also the people that work with plants. I am so honored to work with the people who work with plants, other plant lovers. It's an amazing, amazing community. So I want to invite all of you to, really build that community. And I think that's one of the things that we really try to do with our online course. I started writing that course in 1981 because I had started the California School of Herbal Studies, which was one of the first herb schools that had reopened in the United States. I opened it in the late 1970s. It's still running actually in Sonoma County where I started it. And I had hundreds of people write to me, saying they couldn't travel to California to go to these 7 and 8 month programs. And so I decided I would travel to them. And so I wrote this course that was based on the classes that we taught at the herb school. And, it was designed just like the courses at the herb school, like these in-person classes, to take people deep into the heart of herbalism and to teach them all of the basic skills to be practicing herbalists for home and community. It is not a clinical course. It's not a course that will teach you to be a clinical herbalist, a medical herbalist, but it will teach you how to use herbs for medicine in your home and with your community. So, it's a pretty amazing path. And for all of you who are listening, who are, considering joining us on this path and, learning about it, I just couldn't encourage you enough, especially right now when the world needs us, right? Mm-hmm. In so many levels. And we need the plants on so many levels. I just think it's, I think I want to say one other thing before I pass the speaking stick over to Helen, is that, oftentimes people used to say that there was this resurgence of interest in herbal medicine. And, we want to recognize that always there was the migrant communities and indigenous people, and even, poor communities of people who were still using the plants a lot. But really, right around after World War II, herbalism went deeply underground in the United States particularly, but also many other developing countries. And it existed underground quite well, by the way. And when it started to resurface, which was like in the late 1960s, and really came, came from under the ground up again, a lot of times it was said that was because, people were disillusioned by modern medicine, or this disconnection with nature that had happened, and we were striving to get back to nature. And I do think that was part of it. We needed the plants. People became interested again in this incredible system of healing. But I don't really think that was the reason. I think the real reason, I think that was a reason. But in my experience of working with plants, it was really because the plants were calling us home, because they need us to protect their wild gardens again, to protect the earth. Mm-hmm. And that when we really develop, and cultivate a love for something, we stand up and become a voice for it. So, and the plants are really speaking through us. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rosemary. Yeah. And I just wanted to also thank you all for being with us this evening and speak a little, our team in the course that Rosemary created, The Science and Art of Herbalism, in the theme of this evening about affordability and accessibility. And just kitchen medicine. I can't speak enough and how deeply honored I am to do the work every day that we do. But really, I mean this. Rosemary has so many gifts, and the course weaves this magic through it. And one of the things that our entire team, based on Rosemary's, deep mission of affordability, is that the course and the teachings in it really speak so deeply and resonate around herbalism being the people's medicine. And I can't, it is. And and so those recipes, the other thing is she spoke about, the community that we've built. And one of the honors for me, and I think I can speak for our team in the work that we do every day, is really the community that we have online. And even the students that are our print students, or, might want to learn from the binder and not necessarily study online, but the recurring theme from our students is how well connected they feel to us. Okay. So even though it's a long distance course, I love that. I'm very proud of that. So we have a special discount for you that we'll be sharing. Again, we can't thank you enough for joining us this evening. It's a real deep honor for me to be here with you, Rosemary, and to be with all of you. I wish that I could wrap myself around each of you and introduce ourselves in person, and I hope we do someday. And I think Rosemary has a special closing for each of us this evening. So enjoy your special, the winter solstice. And
I did want to share with you a couple. I'm an avid reader, right? And I used to be able to keep up with every herb book, but there's so many incredible new herb books that are being written by this amazing, remarkable new generation of herbalists they also deeply inspire me. But I wanted to tell you about two books that I'm reading right now. These are not herb books for information, they're herb books for inspiration. But they're written by the brilliant Italian ethnobotanist, herbalist Stefano Mancuso, Planting Our World. If you love to read about plants, this book is magnificent. It's just so inspiring. And he also wrote the book, The Nation of Plants. So Stefano Mancuso. They're my new favorite books that I'm reading. And then before we jump into the question, I just wanted to leave you with this poem. I've read it many times, so you may have heard it, but if you're like me, I could hear it over and over and over again. It was written by an elder named Maria Sabina. She was an herbalist, a healer, and a shaman from the Huatula tribe in Mexico. And she was also considered one of Mexico's greatest poets. And she never took credit for her poetry. She always said it was the mushrooms and spirit that spoke through her. She was also a mushroom curandera and used mushrooms as her vehicle to speak to Creator. So you can close your eyes and listen to this. It's so beautiful. And this is for each one of you. So cure yourself with the light of the sun and the rays of the moon, with the sound of the river and the waterfall, with the swaying of the sea and the fluttering of birds. Heal yourself with mint, with neem and eucalyptus. Sweeten yourself with lavender, rosemary, and chamomile. And hug yourself with the cacao bean and a touch of cinnamon. Put love in your tea instead of sugar, and take it looking at the stars. Heal yourself with the kisses that the wind gives you and the hugs of the rain. Get strong with bare feet on the ground and with everything that is born from it. Get smarter every day by listening to your intuition, looking at the world with the eye of your forehead. Jump, dance, sing, so that you live happier. Heal yourself with beautiful love. And always remember, you are the medicine. You are the medicine. Thank you, Maria.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you, each one of you. So yeah, questions.
Thank
you for being with us. Happy holidays to you. Celebrate, rejoice, and yeah, we hope to see you again.
Yes, thank you, everybody. And now we'll take a couple of the questions. Somebody asked the name of the bar that serves the mocktails in Burlington. Oh. And I believe it's called Tonique, from Lisa Danforth. She was a caterer who actually lived in the Valley, but try it. I think it's going to be fabulous because she was also a caterer and a chef.
Oh, yeah, next date.
We should. A couple people asked, Rosemary, what book of yours is the best for building an herb garden?
I would say probably Medicinal Herbs for Beginner, because I talk about growing each of the herbs. But if you need a book that really covers it growing in depth, this isn't the book. I would recommend Tammy Hartungs. Her last name is Hartung. She's written several books.
We have one on our site.
Yeah, we have one on our site. So you can go to our site, and we have one on the site. And they're all published by Story Publication, but she has some really excellent books for beginner herb gardeners, and also if you already know a lot. But yeah, her books are great. I would suggest those for the gardening with the plants, really.
And then Colleen asked, how do you make the thyme salve that you recommended?
So a basic salve recipe, which is 1 cup of vegetable oil. We usually use olive oil to a 1/4 cup of beeswax. Those are melted together. But before you melt them, you take the oil and you infuse the thyme in it. So you would, let's say you take 1/2 cup of thyme, dry or fresh, and you cover it with a cup of oil, and over very, very low heat, like at a double boiler, you might want to cook it for 2 or 3 hours till the oil becomes very infused. And so there's really good instructions again in my book. It's like a basic recipe. And then you strain the herb and you add that beeswax to it. Yeah, it's that simple. And you can also do solar infusion, where you put your herb in a jar and you cover it with, I don't have a jar here, but you would just cover it just so it's covered with the olive oil and let it sit in a warm, sunny spot. It will not go rancid so long as the herb is in there. It's magic. And then after a week or two, or even longer of sitting in the sun, you strain the herb from the oil, and then you add that beeswax. As I said, it's really just looking online or looking on the Mountain Rose website has a really good basic salve recipe. So salve recipe is 1 cup of herbal infused oil to 1/4 cup beeswax. And you would be using thyme. That gives you an awful lot of thyme salve. So you can cut that recipe down by about 1/4, really, believe me, because a cup of salve will last you and your community for a few years. Sorry about that. I hope that gives you enough information.
And then Leisha asked, does dehydrated garlic still have healing properties?
Well, it depends how it's dehydrated. If it's really high heat, if it's low heat and it feels and tastes and it still has a really strong garlic taste, then it's going to still have medicinal properties. The oils in the garlic are really strong, even though they're volatile oils. They're not usually easily dispelled. So, and I think you all know this trick. I kind of ignored it for a long time, but truthfully, it is true. When you're cooking garlic, it's good to chop your garlic and let it sit for a few minutes, because the allicin actually develops the medicinal properties as it sits. So chop it, let it sit for 10 or 10 minutes, or just not even that long, just a few minutes. And then add it towards the end of your cooking. Don't add it when you're doing your saute of onion and stuff. You add your garlic more towards the end, so you get more of the flavor of it. Yeah.
Thank you. And then Mindy asked, will your course go into formulations?
Oh yeah, it definitely goes into formulations. Formulation is it covers all of the art of herbalism, and formulation is definitely one of the arts of herbalism. I use that triad method to teach my students. The main point, your main intention, support, and a catalyst. So yeah, we go into that.
And if I may, she's a master formulator.
Master formulator. When you work with anything, right? But when you work with plants, you'll have knacks. There'll be just things that are natural for you. Like Some of you will be excellent at gardening, and some of you will be excellent at formulating, and some of you will actually make incredible products. Thankfully, not all of us are excellent at everything, or nobody would like us, right? But I'm really good at formulating.
And I love this question personally because Gaia asks if we have an online connection and community, and the answer is yes. We have forums in our online. Laura, actually the course teacher who is supporting us this evening and answering your questions, I believe in the chat that may or may not have been working. I apologize, I don't know, but she moderates and manages the forums. Okay. And we have very active, the students who are in there ask questions, and we share recipes and things that are going on in the herbal community.
I would want to say one thing about that course is I think we're one of the few courses that still reviews all of your homework. Any student who wants to do the homework, which is projects and question answer with each lesson, we actually still review all of them, write down our answers, and send them back. We do it both in print, so a lot of people will still do the print version, and also online. So it's kind of, I don't know that there's many that do that. People keep telling me, no, you have to do those ones that they have online where you just answer
multiple
things.
Choice.
Yeah, by the machine answering, and I would just never do that. It's like, no way. It's not a good way to teach herbalism. Well, in my mind, actually.
And then someone asked, and I'm not sure of this answer, can you substitute lemon juice for vinegar?
Well, they have different properties. They're both acid for certain, but they have very, very different properties. One is lemon, and the other is apple. And an apple and a lemon have very different properties, right? And when you press the juice is going to have very different properties. The other thing is lemon juice is not stable on the shelf, where apple cider vinegar is a shelf-stable fermented product. Lemon juice is not fermented. So you can substitute, when you want an acid, like in your tea, you could put lemon. I guess you could put apple juice or apple cider, but there are very different products with different properties. I hope that answers that for you.
And Julie asked if you can share the difference between a community herbalist and a clinical herbalist.
Oh yeah, totally very different. So a community herbalist is a person who kind of wears many hats. They may garden and make medicine, and they may help their community with colds and flus and all kinds of health issues. But a clinical herbalist is going to be more like a medical herbalist. They're going to have studied physiology of the body. They might be the main resource for a person who's going through cancer therapy or has diabetes, etc. A community herbalist can help with those things for certain, but they're not going to be the primary healthcare professional working with that person. Oftentimes, clinical herbalists will work in offices with doctors or naturopaths. So it would be, and this is just my own definition of it. I see a community herbalist as helping more with the more common kind of issues that we have and being a support person for that person. But like for myself, I consider myself a community herbalist. And when somebody is dealing with cancer and a cancer therapy, I can be helpful and add support, but I'm not going to be their primary care person and possibly not even their primary herbalist. I would recommend that they see a clinical herbalist who's trained in anatomy, physiology, really like a medical practitioner or doctor would be. They know about drugs. They know about counterindication of herbs and drugs. I know which herbs not to use with certain drugs, but I don't know what the counterindications are going to be with all of the different medications. And I certainly don't know much about drugs. I'm not interested. But a clinical herbalist would know all of that. So they're a clinical professional who has studied herbalism instead of allopathic medicine. Is that defined? Mm-hmm. That's my definition.
And our dream of having an herbalist in every home, on every corner.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think that's
all
the questions.
Oh, wow. There weren't even very many.
Well, there's more. There's many, many, many more.
Well, let's do two more.
Okay. So Irene asks, is there a good salve for children's eczema?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. So I would use calendula, comfrey, and St. John's wort, the old, it's called an all-purpose salve. You may have a different one, but I love calendula. For skin problems, St. John's wort is really excellent, and comfrey is so soothing and healing. So it's kind of what they call an all-purpose salve, but
I've often added chamomile also. My son, it really calms the redness.
Yeah, because your son
he does, and it helps the heat.
Do you use it with the other herbs or just by itself?
I've actually made the blend with the chamomile in it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a common formula. I think it's I'm sure it's in my book because I've been making it it's the first salve I ever made actually. So it's an equal parts calendula, comfrey, St. John's wort, and thank you, Helen. Helen was saying that she uses chamomile in that formula because her son has eczema. So,
and if it's really, really aggravated, we've learned the rescue remedy cream.
Oh,
or
awesome.
Putting some rescue remedy in the salve. It works so well just to reduce the inflammation and when it's aggravated.
So rescue remedy is another branch of herbalism. They're flower essences that you can make, but you can also purchase them anywhere, and actually anywhere in the world they're sold. So rescue remedy is one of the flower essences.
And Angel asks that she has a 12-year-old daughter who just completed Rosalie's course and would love to learn from you.
Oh.
Do you have young ones join you as well?
Yeah, we actually have had many. And Rosalie's course is excellent, by the way. I love Rosalie. We're very good friends. We have had young ones studying with us. I mean,
we have a good amount of them actually right now. Probably I'd say I would say maybe 5 active students who are teenagers right now.
And Helen actually has taught the young children. She has had some apprentices who've worked with her. And
I love that age.
Yeah, it's a really special age. Yeah. There's a wonderful book. I'm sure that your daughter knows that, but it's a kid's herb book by Leslie Tierra.
Oh, that's a fabulous
It's one of my favorite. Actually, I love it as an adult book. Actually, it's just a wonderful, wonderful herb book, just full of projects for children in that age group, younger and older, but in that age group, certain. And one more question.
Okay, Susan asked, can you talk about how the course works, the system of how you designed it?
Well, you can. You want me to? Okay. So it's so there's a print version, which we call the classical print version, because it is very classic. And then there's the online version, which is has a lot more information because we could, it has videos and slides and guest teachers and stuff, because we can include all of that kind of stuff on the online, and you can buy them separately, so it makes them very, very affordable for people, or you can buy them together.
And I'm sorry, I think I would have answered that. I'm so sorry. But I think what she really meant specifically was the lessons in the course and how the course flows.
So there's 10 lessons. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's 10 lessons, and each lesson is designed like a day in the herb school. So you go, and there's anatomy, physiology, like we cover a body system. We don't go into that in deep detail, but we talk about the basic structure and how it works. And then the herbs, you're given a list of herbs. It's usually 6 to 10 herbs that you do your research on. That's where you build and you create a materia medica. And then there's also a fun project. There's always something that's kind of like, I would call like just added interest. It could be natural cosmetics, it can be herbs for animals, it can be flower essences, it can be aromatherapy. So there's just another subject that's just like a added interest. That's part of herbalism. There's always a section on medicinal preparation, so that you learn each lesson, you learn how to make a different product. We start with teas, of course, the basic water preparation. Then we go to salves, tinctures, and on. So you become a good medicine maker.
And to share, it's a really in-depth course that Rosemary created. Honestly, each lesson is probably anywhere, when we say lesson. So the course is a binder, that's like this big. It's 3 years to complete the course.
Yeah, some people complete it quicker, but.
And the gift of each aspect of herbalism is that Rosemary weaves in the materia medica for each of the body systems and each area of herbalism that she's teaching about, so that she, as she was speaking earlier, from my perspective, is that you really teach your students how to have that deep relationship with the plants, which really then brings such a foundational understanding and knowing for working with the plants.
Oh, yeah.
And it is a very in-depth course. so each lesson, I would just like to,
Well, I was laughing about that because, online these days, everybody wants to rush through things. We'd really see a big difference, can I do it in 3 weeks or something? You can, but, so you could read it like that, but it's not designed for that. So we do have people that finish really quickly, but it's very shallow. Most of the, herbalism, quite honestly, is a lifetime study. You never learn it all, and you never stop learning, which is why it's so fascinating and incredible. So, my intention was always to take people on a journey on that herbal path that really does take them to the very heart of herbalism and builds a solid foundation. So, people have gone on to study clinical herbalism after taking this course, or open herb stores, or become, product manufacturers and stuff. Because, as I said, you find out the path that you want to do as you're working with it. But it's just interesting, how people think that they can learn it all in 6 months. I wish, but no. So we usually encourage people, somewhere in a year and a half to 3 years, they usually have completed. Though we do have people who have, really done the work well and done it faster. If you don't have anything else going on in your life, you don't have kids or a job, and you have a lot of time on your hands, you can dive into it and get it done in a year. But usually, put it in perspective of everything what we do in our lives, it usually takes about 1.5 years to 2 years to finish. Really. And we give people up to 3 years, and then you can renew your subscription if you want, and of course at a discounted price. So, yeah.
And in the spirit of Rosemary's generous heart, she includes hundreds of her own recipes that she formulated, and also, the herbal protocols for common ailments in each body system that she's teaching about, which I find the print version, I reference that all the time. Yeah. It really is like a lifelong reference book. So anyway, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm sorry if we couldn't get to all your questions, but we're just so appreciative, and thank you. And have fun on the herbalist path, and we'll see you. As I said, we'll see you along it.